Our suicide prevention briefing for calendar year 20 is focused on safety. So what that means is, what are the actions that each of us can take to keep ourselves and the people around us safe? And so I'm going to go through a number of those things. The first one is, the first number one protective factor against suicide is building connection. And so if you can build connection with the people around you and they know that you care about them, then they hopefully won't want to die. And so right now with the COVID and everything going on, we need to be very diligent about this, because people talk about social distancing, but what we really need is physical distance. What we need to do is stay connected with each other, and so checking in on each other, and if we need that for ourselves, reaching out to others and making that connection as well. So building connection, number one protective factor. The next thing I want to talk about is that there are signs for distress. And so stress, that's normal, right? Everybody has responsibilities, everybody has deadlines, everybody has things in their life that cause stress. But distress is not normal, and that's what we want to be aware of. And so the signs of distress are things like, lack of sleep, increased use of alcohol, people who have anxiety and different things that are going on that cause that distress. When you start seeing those things and you realize that they're not doing what they need to do to take care of themselves, that's when either as you see it yourself, you have to reach out for help, or if you see it in another person, you got to get them the help that they need as well. And so what we want to talk about then is, how do you protect yourself? Self-care is protection. And so exercise, good nutrition, practicing your resilience factors like listening to music, participating in your spiritual fitness and keeping that up. One of the things I found when I was deployed was actually engaging in improvisational comedy with some people every week. And so doing that was just good to laugh at and with each other, and it was just good for my soul. And so the biggest thing, though, is that having these things in theory is not enough. You need to practice them. And so doing what you say you want to do to take care of yourself is the critical thing. So that's the thing, is make sure that you're doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. And so the next thing I want to talk about is, how do we respond? If we see that person who's in distress, we believe that they're at risk, how do we respond to them? The first thing you got to do is ask the question, and you have to ask them the specific question, are you thinking of suicide? Because if you ask them, are you thinking of hurting yourself, that's not what they're thinking. A person who has decided that suicide is the answer to their problem has decided that their pain is so great that the solution is to die. So they're not thinking of hurting themselves, they're thinking of ending their pain. And so if you ask them, are you thinking of suicide, you're talking about the behavior itself. And when you speak about the behavior, that triggers something in that person who is in what Ms. Story Sorensen calls a dissociative state. And that dissociative state gets kind of interrupted for a second there, and that person wakes up to the reality and realizes, oh my goodness, my life is in danger. And so at that moment, once you've asked that question, if they say yes, then it's time to care for them. And by caring for them, I mean just listen to them. Don't judge them. Don't try to fix them. Don't try to say that their life is worth living or anything. Try and argue with them. Just simply listen and hear the pain that that person is going through. And once they get to the point of recognizing that they need the help, then get them to the help. Escort them. Don't just hand them a piece of paper and say, hey, or call this number. You call the number and say, hey, I got my friend here. They're having some issues. I'd like them to talk to you, and then you hand the phone over. Or if you want to get them in person somewhere, to a chaplain, mental health, whatever, escort them. Bring them yourself and make that warm handoff. Now, if this person already has a plan and has decided to die and they know how they're going to do it, then you need to get them to an emergency room immediately, because their life is in danger. And so it's critical that we do these things so that we can help protect our folks. And then the last thing that we need to do is what we call go slow. And what this is talking about limiting access to firearms, especially firearms, but access to lethal means. And the reason we got to do this is because we're going to see our survivability rates come up if we do it. It's called time-based prevention. So if you can create time between the thought and the action, then they have time to make a different choice. But if they can just reach in a drawer, pick up a weapon, put it to their head and pull a trigger without thinking about it, that's not a good situation. And so we talk about safes, we talk about locks, and we talk about outside the home. So the gun locks, we have those in the Airman Care Center, and they are free. So if you need to get them, get them. And all this is doing is making sure that that tool that you have is being used for the intention you have for it, rather than something you did not intend. And so it makes it safer for your family, it makes it safer for everyone involved. And so this is critical because I just took a recent training called CALM, which means Counseling on Access to Lethal Means. 90% of those who attempt suicide with a firearm die. 90% of those who attempt suicide and survive never attempt again. So if we can help them survive that first attempt or get them the help before they attempt, then we can get them through the crisis and we can see our survivability rates come up. So that's why this is so critical from a public health standpoint. And then finally, the suicide prevention hotline is 1-800-253-8255. The 8255, you spell out TALK on your phone. And option 1 is for veterans and military. So again, it's 1-800-253-8255. And after this, I'll send you a resource list so that will complete the training. And if people want to know more about suicide response, our wing has purchased some START licenses through a group called Living Works. And it takes about 60 to 90 minutes to do that online. And I still have about 70 or 80 left. So if people would like to do that, that will increase our protective factors as well.